Thank you for tuning in to this broadcast. It is called Be Fruitful and Multiply. I am your host, Inez Roberson. Today I'm going to be reading a book, and it is called Big Bad Bruce, and it's by Bill Peet. This is a request from Lily. Hi, Lily. I hope you enjoy this book. I love you so much. And here it is. Forever Green Forest was a quiet, peaceful place until Bruce, a great shaggy brute of a bear, came wandering up out of a canyon one day. A bear of such size was enough to frighten anyone, and the smaller creatures who lived there kept a sharp eye on Bruce in case he might give them trouble. As long as Bruce was busy rooting around under boulders and logs, searching for a feast of beetles and grubs, there was no need to worry. But when the big fellow was feeling frisky and ready for fun, it was time to beware of the bear. What Bruce called fun was to scare the wits out of everyone. The most fun of all for Bruce was rock tumbling. There were lots of rocks in Forever Green Forest, great jumbles of them. With a swipe of a paw, the bear sent them tumbling down the steep slopes, 3 and 4 at a time. The tumbling rocks shattered logs and flattened the bushes and brush, leaving no place for the rabbits and quail to hide. So they took off in a panic to go leaping and dodging and flying pell-mell in every direction. Once he had them all on the run, Bruce went rolling around the ground, exploding into great roaring snorts, fits of laughter. Ha ha, ho ho, ha ha, ho ho. As long as the bear lived in Forever Green Forest, it would never be peaceful and quiet again. And for all anyone could see, he had come there to stay. Then one afternoon, Bruce made an awful mistake, a terrible blunder. He came across a huge boulder resting on a bluff and decided to give it a ride. With a mighty heave, he sent the boulder tumbling down a steep slope, flippity blumpity wimpity whoomp, smashing pine trees and aspens to splinters and leaving deep dents in the ground as it went. In one last big bounce, it landed, kerplump, in a berry patch, just missing an old woman and her cat by a whisker. It was Roxie, a crafty little witch who was out picking blueberries with her cat Clinker. "Where in blazes did you come from?" she shrieked, giving the boulder a vicious kick. "How did you get here? Who sent you?" Just then, a raucous roar of laughter echoed through the pines, and in a twinkle, Roxie caught sight of the bear on the bluff. "So that's who," she cried, and in a fury, she went storming up the slope to face the bear. "Uh-oh. You big lummox," she exploded. "You big bumbling brute. That rock could have squished us to smithereens, and you think it's funny?" "Ha ha," chortled Bruce. "Ho ho, hee, ha ha." The bear had never seen anything half so funny as the frantic little woman with the wild flying hair. "Laugh while you can," warned the witch, "but just wait. I'll have the last laugh, Mr. Bear. Oh, indeed I will." Then she took off like a shot to go shrieking down the slope, so fast her cat could barely keep pace. And when the witch reached her cabin at the edge of the forest, she had hatched "I'll make a pie," she decided, "a very special pie for old Mr. Bear." In a flicker of an eye, she made the pie crust, and in a trizzle and a trace, she whipped up a filling of blueberries and honey. "Now for the trickery," she muttered, flipping through her magical cookbook to one of her favorite recipes. Then, reading the directions carefully, Roxie began to measure. 1 drop of dwindling, 2 blurps of belittling, a smidgen of meniting, a half-teaspoon of twerp, a shrift of shortening, and then 1 pinch of kaput should do it. The instant the pie was baked a golden brown and ready to serve, Roxie scurried out the door with it, back to the forest. Then, keeping an eye out for the bear, she crept along through the shadows as slinky as a fox. When she reached a small clearing there was not a sign of him, but she could hear him snorting and snooting around in the bush somewhere up the slope. Quickly she picked out a pine stump, jerked off her apron, and flung it over the top, then put the pie on it. "The table's all set," she whispered. "Now skit-scat. Now skit-cat, kitty cat. Let's get lost." And they ducked down behind a log, just as a hop, skip, and a jump from the stump, to wait for an old Mr. Bear. They didn't wait long. Pretty soon, a whiffle of breeze sent this sweet aroma of blueberries and honey drifting up to Bruce, and he followed his sniffling nose straight to the stump, snatched up the pie in his paws, and in one chomp and a slurp, it was gone. "Ho, ho!" crackled Roxie, popping up from behind the log. "I tricked you, Mr. Bear. Ho, ho! Did I ever?" Bruce didn't like being surprised, and he let go with an angry gruff. "Gruff yourself," Roxie shot back. "You don't scare me. Just watch out. You don't peek to bits by a quail or stomp by a rabbit." "Snarf!" snorted the grumpy bear, and he reeled around and lumbered off into the underbrush. Bruce hadn't gone very far when he began feeling drowsy, so drowsy he could hardly keep his eyes open. So he flopped down against a tree trunk to rest, and in the time it takes for one big yawn, he dropped off to sleep. While the bear slept, he gradually began to grow smaller. Inch by inch, and little by little, Bruce dwindled away. He kept shrinking and shriveling until he was down to the size of a possum. And still he kept shrinking. When the diminishing spell was finally finished, the bear had dwindled all the way down to the size of a chipmunk. Bruce was awakened by a sharp peck on the head, and with an angry growl that came out like a squeak, he reared up. When he found himself nose to beak with a giant of a quail, Bruce backed off to gape in amusement. Then, as the bewildered bear looked around, he was surprised by 3 more giant quail and a pair of huge rabbits. The rabbits and quail had recognized Bruce, and as they closed in to attack, he quickly turned tail and went plowing headlong into a tangle of brambles. But there was no chance of outrunning the rabbits and a quail in a thicket. They were close on his heels, pecking and stomping on the bear with the fury. Bruce didn't dare try to fight back. He kept ducking and dodging his way through the brambles, frantically searching for some place to hide, a gopher hole, a flat rock to squeeze under, any place at all. At last, he stumbled into a forest of cattails at the edge of a creek, and in a flying leap flung himself into the water, kerpoosh, and booped up well beyond reach of the rabbits and quail. Then, kicking and thrashing with all 4 feet, Bruce headed for the opposite bank, which was a long, long swim for a tiny bear. About halfway across, a sudden swirl of current sent him spinning around and around, upside down and under. Bruce was about to be swept down the twisting creek and away forever when he grabbed onto a rock and managed to haul himself out of the water. Then the bruised and bedraggled bear sprawled out on his belly, choking and wheezing and snorting out bubbles until at last he was able to breathe. For a long time, he lay there staring into the swirling stream, trying to figure out what could have happened to make him so small. He wondered if it might have been something he ate. Suddenly, he remembered the blueberry pie and the fierce little woman who had warned him, "Watch out you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit." All at once, Bruce realized he had been tricked by a crafty old witch, shrunk by a magic spell. By this time, the sun had gone down and deep shadows had crept across the creek. A chilling breeze rippled the dark water, and the soggy wet bear shriveled and shook from the cold and also from fright. Bruce knew that the night hunters were already out on the prowl, and now he was fair game. The jittery bear sat up on his haunches, looking all about in the dark for any sign of danger. He looked everywhere but up, or he would have seen the frosty old owl peering down from a limb tree above. The fuzzy little brown thing on the rock was a choice tidbit for the owl, when all of a sudden a screechy voice split the air. "Mr. Bear! Mr. Bear!" With a terrified hoot, the owl sailed off into the night, leaving the bear to face another kind of danger. In desperation, Bruce scrunched himself up into a ball, hoping the witch would mistake him for a part of the rock. But there was no chance of fooling foxy old Roxie. And holding her lantern out over the creek, she spotted the bear in a flash. "Ha ha," she crackled. "There you are, Mr. Bear. No bigger than a minute. Quick, quick, Clinker, go fetch him, skit, scat." Before the bear could blink an eye, the cat snatched him off the rock by the scruff of the neck and leaped lightly back to the bank. "Good cat," cried Roxie. "Now home we go. But easy does it. This little bear has had a big day." As Bruce was carried along through the dark forest, he didn't dare put up a struggle. Besides, he was too weary to even lift a paw, and much too scared. He was sure the crafty old witch planned to fix him for good. If she could shrink him down to a runt of a thing, she could turn him into a tadpole or into a flea, or make him disappear altogether. But to the bear's surprise, the witch turned out to be a kindly old woman and as gentle as could be, just as long as she kept her temper. Roxie loved flowers and birds and animals, especially small animals, and she soon grew very fond of the tiny bear, so she decided to keep him that way. Clinker the cat also took a liking to the bear, and they ate out of the very same bowl and slept in the same corner together under the kitchen stove. Little bears have short memories, and in a few days, Bruce forgot all about ever being a giant bear. For all he knew, Roxie Flower's garden was a beautiful leafy green forest with a plenty of room to roam. Whenever the tiny bear was feeling frisky and ready for fun, he flipped the pebbles around as if they were boulders just to scare the wits out of the grasshoppers, the beetles, and the caterpillars. From a bug's eye view, Bruce was a great big hairy, scary, horrible brute of a beast. The end. Well, that was a wonderful story. It definitely made me smile. Don't forget to be fruitful and multiply. And if you have anything inspiration or positive for me to read, definitely leave it in the comments below. As always, remember that God loves you. I am His servant, Inez Roberson, and I love you too.